This is Focus with Jack Caudill.
Good evening, I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome to this month's edition of Focus. This month we're talking about the Sturgis Rally, just a month away from us right now. Three guests with us to talk about that. Rod Woodruff is the CEO of the Sturgis Buffalo Chip. Dean Kinney is the CEO of the Homeslice Group, and Brett Winsell is the chairman of the board of the Jackpine Gypsy. A little background before we get going. The 84th annual Sturgis Motorcycle Rally is coming up this year from August 2nd through August 11th. The rally started back in 1938 when Clarence Pappy Hole held a race in Sturgis. They had 9 racers, about 200 spectators there that year. It has grown just a bit since then. Last year, over $658,000 in sales tax collected. Some years, the attendance over 700,000. Rob, we're going to talk to you. What kind of expectations do you have for the rally for this summer?
Well, we'd like to break all records, you know, and but that probably is going to be a normal rally is what I expect, but it's going to be a very strong rally. There's strong attendance. A lot of the indications, you know, you look at the travel records that you see in the news everywhere, and our reservations are very strong. Things are looking very bright actually for an off year, which is usually what something like the 84th compared to the 80th or 85th would be. The 84th would be a little slower. We think it's going to be very strong this year.
Dean, how do you look ahead to the summer? What are you expecting to see this year?
I mean, I would echo what Rod said. I think there was a time when the year before an anniversary year, the 84th before the 85th, for example, would be quite a bit off. I feel like that's been less that way in recent cycles. So we think it's going to be great. And then the big thing for downtown Sturgis is tourism in general just gets better all summer. A lot of that, of course, also related to the rally, but we're having a great summer. We're up year over year, and so we're expecting a strong rally again this year. Okay.
Brett Winsell with the Jackpine Gypsies, what are you looking for this year?
Well, we think it's going to be a great year. We have, all indications show that there's going to be a lot of people showing up, a lot of racers, so we're looking for a great year.
Now, Rod, talking about the Buffalo Chip, you started the Buffalo Chip back in 1981. The city wanted people out of the city park. What was your mindset getting started with the Chip back then?
Well, we were just looking to have a little party, have a place outside of town where people could go, because the city really was tired of having them misbehaving in town, and so they just wanted to get them out of town. We thought we'd just have a party, and that was really it, right? So it wasn't any genius probably involved, right? We were just going to have a party.
Any picture in your mind back then of what this thing has become now, that many years later?
I can't tell that big a lie. So the answer is a flat no. So no, who knew, right? I mean, we started off, and I tell people only like 20 people showed up, and really we probably had a couple hundred. But it wasn't much. It was just a nice little party. Had a little bonfire down there, and some music, and just people having a good time again. But it grew pretty quickly.
What was the key to that growing? What brought that growth on?
People had a good time, and they didn't have any hassles. And people like to go where they're welcome. Just a simple little formula there. You welcome people, hospitality, and we didn't have any reason not to be hospitable. We had a pasture with no water, no lights, no electricity, 3 strands of barbed wire, and little grass growing around a dry creek. It was perfect, right? What could go wrong?
How much fun was it back then at the beginning?
It was, depends on who you're with, I think, But nobody ever complained, and I think the answer to that is explained really by the fact that, the following year they came back and brought 3 or 4 friends along with them, and that's kind of how fast it grew, is because people just, word of mouth, they brought more people back, it just expanded, it just kind of blew up. And it still works that way. And now we're getting repeats from years back, and somebody said, oh yeah, I was there then, and my folks brought us out here back in whatever, and now they're bringing their kids. So I mean, it's a multi-generational event, is what it is now. So I used to say it's like a family reunion, except you really want to go, and that's really kind of the key here. It really is. People are bringing their own families too.
Now you're running a big business up there now. How did you have to adjust to that change over the years?
Oh, it took a lot of time. And then every year, if you're going to have more people, you have to make some changes to accommodate them, and you have to, and really, when you're starting off and you don't know nothing, you have to learn as you go. You don't have any money, you have to figure out what you're going to afford to do. And so just 1 inch at a time, and it took, every time we learned we did something wrong, it took us 1 year to try to change it, right? So just slow.
Dean Kinney is the CEO of the Homeslice Group. You guys own the Loud American in downtown Sturgis. What is that like running a business downtown during that 2 weeks of mayhem down there?
Well, it's evolved over time for sure. I think it's better than ever right now. There's just more year-round businesses downtown, which has made the downtown district better. And seems like we have a better summer every year. We definitely do. And then I think downtown over the last 15 years or so, especially in the last 10 years, during the rally has developed into its own corridor. People spend a certain amount of time down there no matter what when they come to the rally. We always say you can't come to Sturgis and not have been on Main Street. So that's a huge advantage that we have, I think, and people consider it kind of ground zero of the event. So it's a great place to be, and it's always been a good business for us. And you mentioned earlier, Jack, you just asked how much fun the Buffalo Chip was in the early days. And I was lucky enough to have been around there a lot in the late 80s and early 90s. And the answer is a lot of fun. That's how much fun it was.
What's the key to keeping a business going downtown through that period of time? Because there's got to be a lot of challenges involved with that too.
There are. I mean, I think the key is our managers and our people. We grow from, most of the summer we'll have around 75 to 100 employees. During the peak rally, we'll have 300 or so. And so there's a lot of new people that come in, but we've been really lucky in the last few years that we've put together both a management team, some that's year-round, and others that come and help us manage it just during the peak summer weeks. And then we have staff that comes back every year. So I think our biggest advantage is we have tons of staff that come back every year, know our systems, know the place, care about it like we do, and it works out.
Now you're one of those places that stays open year-round, not just during that rally period. How important is that to you to keep that thing going all year?
It's super important. We made that decision almost right off the bat. We've been there a little over, I think we've been there 23 years now. And when we first got there, we didn't have a full liquor license, but we got that a couple of years later, and since then we've been open and like 363 days a year, something like that. We think it's important to the community, and the community has responded to that as well. We get a lot of business because we're open year-round, a lot of loyalty from the community, which we appreciate. And then, but there were, in the beginning, if it wasn't for the couple of weeks of the rally, we would not have been there. But that's changed over time. It's turned into a year-round business and an especially good tourism business.
Brett Winsell is the CEO, the chairman of the board of the Jackpine Gypsies. You can't talk about the history of the rally without talking about the Jackpine Gypsies. How do you guys now stay connected to that history and the guys that got this thing going that many years ago?
Well, we still have the tradition of the history in terms of putting on the rally and the races. But I think we're a lot more than just the history, because we're still moving on to bigger and better things. So I would say, in terms of the history part, we have just continued putting on the races, but we've expanded on that and just kind of kept moving forward.
So how have you guys expanded and grown along with the rally over the years?
Well, originally it was just flat track racing. It was the original race. The actual original race was called a field meet, and that would have actually been in '37. The first rally, so we always kind of consider our rally 1 year older than the real rally. So we're on our 85th, and the Sturgis considers it the 84th. So, but it originally started out just being flat track racing. We've gone into hill climbs, motocross, TT races. We've done a new thing called verticross, which is really exciting. It's kind of like a uphill drag race motocross race. And the only rules are there are no rules. So whoever gets to the top of the hill first is the winner. And we have a timing light, and it's just like a drag race. The light goes down and then the gates drop, and then you just take off, and there's jumps all the way up the hill. And We've gotten to where we're probably going to have to go to 2 days on that, because it's gotten where it's going till 2 o'clock in the morning, and everybody's just barely awake, and so that's really expanded. We've started putting on supermotos the last couple of years. Had AMA Supermoto there. We are going to be putting on a race with Steve Nace this year, so that'll be another new thing that we're going to be doing. We're actually working with AFT on the street race that's happening. The dirt section is going to be the Jackpine Gypsy dirt section, so that's kind of cool. So, and then we've continued to do the road rides and all of those types of things. And so anyway.
Now, you guys run races outside of Rally Week. How big of a deal is that week-long of stuff they're doing during the rally?
Well, you mean
well, you've got. I know you've had races recently that are going on out there at the Gypsies grounds. How big of a deal are the races you guys are doing for Rally Week?
They're a big deal. They're a very big deal. Many of them are AMA races that you get points for. So the motocross race is actually the South Dakota State Championship. So if you win that, you're the South Dakota State champ, and no one can ever take that away from you. It's an AMA event, so you'll go down in the record books as this year's AMA South Dakota State champion. Our Supermoto it's a national every year, and kind of the unique thing about our track is most of the Supermotos are all pavement with a little bit of dirt. We're primarily dirt with a little bit of pavement, and then we throw in a lot of twists. So some years we started at the gate. Most Supermotos are started in a GP format. Sometimes we'll actually start them at a motocross gate. So then they race through the motocross track that's been packed and race on some of the pavement that we've put in. And then they jump into the short track, race around the short track. We have some jumps in the center, and then they actually have to jump back out of the short track, get back on the pavement. So yeah, there's a lot of big deals.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll continue our look at the Sturgis Rally when we continue with this month's edition of Focus. I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome back to this month's edition of Focus, talking about the upcoming Sturgis Rally, the 84th, coming up from August 2nd through the 11th. Dean Kinney is the CEO of the Homeslice Group. Dean, just mentioned you are a Sturgis native.
Yeah.
How have you seen this rally evolve and change over the years?
Well, I mean, a lot. I remember some of my earliest memories of the rally were in the 70s when they were still, when the bikers were still camping down at the city park. I remember my friends and I would ride bicycles over to where you could look down on the park, and there would be little strip shows going on top of vans and things like that. And you know, for 11 or 12-year-old kids, we thought that was pretty cool. So that's one of my early memories. And then, you know, I spent a ton of time at the short track when I was a kid watching the races there, and at the half mile. The tradition of going to the half mile the first or the last weekend of the rally is something that we enjoyed for years and years, and so that kind of stands out. And then I had an uncle that ran a little food stand in downtown Sturgis on the corner there where the Black Hills Federal Credit Union is now. I remember being around there. And then as I got a little bit older and became a media person, we started to cover the rally, of course, one of the biggest things that happens in the Black Hills, and that's where I kind of got to know Woody and spent time at the Buffalo Chip, like I said earlier, in the late 80s and early 90s, covering the concerts and the growth of the things happening there. And then 1990, just in general, I think most would agree, the 50th rally is when the rally went from big to massive. You know, in 1990 on the 50th, that's when the numbers really shot up and just never went back. And that was, you know, in my mind, the key year where the rally became an event that was really known. It became a household word, you know.
And Brett Winsell is the chairman of the board of the Jackpine Gypsies. You've been around the rally for a long time.
Long time.
What have you seen as far as development and change in this thing?
You know, it's just grown beyond measure. You know, you kind of think back to when I remember riding to town with my dad on our dirt bikes. We'd leave our cabin in Hannah, and we would ride to town through all the back roads, and you could ride into town. And now that just wouldn't happen. You know, the roads are so packed. There's so many more people here. The rally itself has gotten to have so many events going on that it's really become the Black Hills Rally, like the original name, the Black Hills Motor Classic. It's really become Black Hills Motor Classic. It really is the Sturgis Rally, but it really encompasses the entire Black Hills.
Rod Woodruff is the CEO of the Buffalo Chip. You said you started back in '81 with the Chip. Have you seen the whole rally as a whole kind of just evolve since that time?
Well, when it started, for my awareness of it, you know, my brother, I didn't even know had a motorcycle. I was talking with him, and he said that you know, he was going to go out to the Black Hills. Him and his friends would ride out and go riding through the hills for a day, and I didn't. Nobody referred to that as a rally or the Black Hills Motor Classic. And really, when the news broke about how Sturgis was trying to get rid of motorcyclists, really the first time I became aware of it. And I come back from a deal in New York City. Went out for the Bar Association, and there were these motorcycles going up the hill there in I-90. And so I thought, well, that's cool. Let's stop and look at that. And so, you know, in 1980, I still didn't really know there was much of a motorcycle rally. And when I got to hanging around a little bit, it turned out the estimated attendance was something like 20,000. And actually the city had asked the chamber, and the chamber actually sent letters out to other chambers of commerce back in the early 80s there. Could you please take some of these people, do something to attract these people to get them out here? It's too many people, because they're all coming in on one street. And what Dean said was, I remember sitting with the owner and a couple other people in what used to be the Philtown restaurant there, and we were watching I-90, and it's probably a week before we thought to rally, and it was motorcycle, 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 motorcycle. It was stunning what happened. And they'd been telling us for years, you don't know what's going to happen to you on the 50th. It was like, what do you mean? You don't know what's going to happen to you. What do you mean? You know, that, and I found out what they meant, right? We were inundated with people. I used to close my office on Monday at 5 o'clock, and I'd go over and take down the gate at that 3 strands of barbed wire, and people would start drifting in. And I'd hire school teachers after school got out to go out and kind of, you know, cut the hay and kind of stuff. And I went out there, it was 3 weeks before the rally, and there were people camped clear the hell out where we'd never had anybody camped. All of a sudden I thought, uh-oh, there's trouble. I mean, that was, they were right. We didn't have any idea that 500,000 people were going to show up, when before that, you know, we had just much smaller numbers, right? And so, yeah, that was a jump, and it's kind of like Joe Teresi said. He said, well, I don't think it'll ever fall down below 100,000 again. And 100,000 was a huge number, and, you know, over the years it's been 500, 600, a couple times 700, and then depending on how you count, it just rolls between 440,000 and 750,000. It seems like people that are attributed for being here during the rally, whether they came for the rally or not, but most of them do. But I mean, we just started right out promoting and wanting to attract people here, and I think we had some impact with doing that, and it helped. And so the next thing you know, they were building the longest approach on I-90 in the history of the world, so that they wouldn't have to block traffic, this was, you know, on I-90, because the traffic got so good that they had to shut off part of I-90 there because there were too many motorcyclists trying to get into Sturgis and get through Sturgis. That was before they had any, there was only one way to get to us, and it was a real slow way that way.
Is the makeup of the people coming changing over time?
You know, it changed a long time ago. For a long time already, we've had families, we've had generational people. You've got your upper middle class. You know, if you want to classify people, we always talk about lawyers and all that kind of stuff, and doctors. And there's certainly, you know, 8 or 9%, which is probably higher than the normal population, that might be professional people like that. But the average income of the people that come to the rally are higher than the average of the people that live here, or at least it used to be before so many people who came to the rally decided they would stay because it's so nice here, right? Yeah. And so that's changed. I mean, everything has changed. You look from the top of the mountain here that this studio is built on. You look out there and you see how big this whole city and whole area has developed, and it's the same thing. And some of that is direct response, result of the rally, the income that is brought to this entire region, the entire Black Hills, and all the people that are just moving here.
All right.
It's a bunch.
We got to take another break. We'll continue our look at the Sturgis Rally when we continue with this month's edition of Focus. I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome back to this month's edition of Focus, talking about the upcoming Sturgis Rally, the 84th. Brett Winsell is the chairman of the board of the Jackpine Gypsies to talk about where the rallies come from. Where's it going? Where do you see this thing going down the road from here?
You know, it's just going to get bigger and better. And we were kind of kidding earlier. We get phone calls from people all the time talking about these big things that are going to happen. And one was flying motorcycles, so maybe we're going there.
Rod Woodruff is the CEO of the Buffalo Chip. Where do you see the rally going 10, 15, 20 years from now?
You know, it's a mystery to me. I've been talking about having motorcycles that aren't on the road, they're floating around, and I think that's going to happen, the Jetsons. So, you know, how much do people change? The mechanics change, all that kind of stuff changes, but I think human character pretty much stays the same. People are going to like to get together, they like to meet friends, they like to look at new stuff, and all of that comes right here at Sturgis. We're giving them some place where they can see everything new for that kind of a lifestyle. It's a sense of freedom and fresh air, and you can't get a better taste of it anywhere than you can right here.
Dean Kinney is the CEO of the Homeslice Group. What do you see as the future of the Sturgis Rally?
I think it's strong. I think we've carved out a couple of things that make it that way. One, everybody will tell you, compared to other rallies around the country, the riding is better here than anywhere. We've always been blessed to have that. But then past that, this event has turned into much more than just a motorcycle rally. It's also it's a food and live music festival, you know. Certainly led by the Buffalo Chip with the huge concerts they have there, but there's stages all over the area. There's great food, whether it's full-time restaurants or street vendors or whatever it is. So I think there's a lot of reasons to come to this rally and a lot of ways to spend many days in the Black Hills. And I think it's the secret sauce that'll keep us going for many, many years.
Is there a way that this thing gets too big?
No, I don't really think so. It seems like it's a little bit self-regulating. On years when the rally is huge, it just spreads out a little bit more, and then when it's a little bit smaller, it contracts a little bit. You know, it's kind of the same downtown all the time, same at the Buffalo Chip all the time, same at the Jackpine Gypsies all the time, but maybe in the outer areas they notice it more if it's a better year or a lesser year.
How about you? Can the rally get too big?
I don't think it can get too big, no. I think it can just keep growing, and you know, it's going to continue to morph, and the demographics are going to continue to change. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that we're going to probably see, in my opinion, is a changing in the demographics. You know, for years, you know, we had the people that loved, we called them the gray hairs, and they're out of respect.
What are you saying, Brett?
Out of respect. Hey, I'm there too. But they really came to ride their bikes in the hills, and they primarily rode Harleys, and they wanted to see flat track races, and they wanted to see half-mile races. And we've seen that change to where it's become a party as well. We've seen it become a festival. I think that what we're really going to see is we're going to see the demographics that we haven't seen before. That's kind of one of the things that I think this street race is really going to do for Sturgis. We're going to get the demographics that would have never come to Sturgis in the past, but now they're going to be coming. And so,
All right. I hate to cut you off, but we are out of time. Rod Woodruff, Dean Kinney, Brett Winsell, thank you, and thank you for joining us. See you again the first Sunday night of next month for another edition of Focus.
Nice job.
Yeah, that was nice.